Hello and welcome to episode 111 of the Wasps podcast. I'm Kevin Gallagher. I'm joined again by Kieran Mooney. Kieran, how are you today?
I'm good, Kev. I'm good. I've had better weeks personally. Nearly blinded myself in one eye, but what has kept me in good spirits is tuning into the Wasps and seeing another victory clocked up for both the men's and the women's at the weekend. So, no, I'm improving. The Wasps are flying, so things are good. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I think I've had a better week than you have by the sounds of things. Rumour has it that your eyes were bleeding with covering the Celtic game and midweek, but we'll wait and see whether that was true or not. But yeah, all good. Top of the league, game in hand. Can't really complain. And as you say, the women's team bouncing back from the disappointment from the weekend before as well, with a thumping double-digit win on Sunday in Falkirk. So yeah, all good. Last week's episode, obviously, we did a special episode with Alan Milne, so we didn't record one after the Rangers game, but I guess we could probably touch on that just as a little starting point for today's episode. A rather good day out. Shame about the result in the end, but a good day out. Started early in the Royal Oak, onto the bus and through in Glasgow for the afternoon. Enjoyed the game as well. I've got to say, Ibrox isn't the nicest venue to go visit, but I actually thought it was all right the weekend before last. And the main thing, a really good performance from the Alloa team as well.
I thought Alloa acquitted themselves really, really well, both on and off the park. I think what you said there in terms of the travel and support, it was excellent to see sitting over in the main stand in the gantry, looking over to that corner. It was just a real solid black and gold. The colours were out, which always makes it a lot more powerful, and they were in fine voice as well. And I don't think any of the players or the manager let them down either. They competed well. Obviously, Rangers dominated possession. They had plenty of the ball, but Alloa were more of a match for them and gave them a little scare at times as well. I think when you look at the two goals that we scored, there's so much quality to break down in those goals, and I think when you look at the Rangers goals, some of them are, the penalty, the one where you throw everybody up, a set piece. So it's, I didn't think we were getting broken down time after time, and when we did get the opportunity to break, we were making them count. 2 goals at Ibrox is definitely not to be sniffed at, and Scott Taggart takes his place third man after Willie Crilly to score at Ibrox, so it's a good accolade, and I think we can all be pretty proud and chuffed of our result and our performance. But of course, yeah, we're not in the round for not in the hat for the next round.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the goals we conceded, the ridiculous penalty decision aside, our first experience of VAR, and I'd be glad if it's our last, if I'm totally honest. Like you said, the last one, they're breaking away a loose pass from Stevie Ellington, but we're going chasing the game at that point. The first one is, to be fair, an absolute screamer. It's a hell of a finish for the first one. The second one, I think the timing just after us equalising and the nature of that, from the set piece, that's the only one really that I would say that probably a bit disappointed with that one. To be fair to Fernandes, I think it scored. It's a hell of a leap from the set piece, incidentally from Rothwell, who potentially could have been sent off at the Alloa equaliser. But that's the only one I would say that they're probably a bit disappointed with. Exactly as you say, look, we expected to be out of possession for long periods, and that was the case. Great travelling support. I'll be honest, the first goal, I don't know, because of the sun as well, kind of coming, like, we couldn't really see what had happened no one had any idea what had happened at the first goal, and all of a sudden it was in the back of the net. The build up to it was really, really nice. But the second goal, being at that end, Taggart scoring and then running over to towards that corner, I mean, it was a brilliant feeling in that corner at the time, and getting the game back to 3-2. We talked about the kind of the domestic form that Rangers have been showing. When it got back to 3-2, I think a lot of us were sitting there thinking there's a chance here, but it wasn't to be. But as you say, on and off the park, acquitted ourselves really, really well, and good experience for a lot of those guys. I'm sitting there thinking about guys like Owen Foster. A couple of months ago, he's been released from St Mirren. He's picked up his first kind of senior gig as dropping down to part time, dropping down to League One, and here he is. He's turning out out at Ibrox in the second round of the League Cup, and I think for guys like that, what a fantastic experience that'll be for them. But yeah, as I say, it wasn't to be, but we moved on to back to league action, and we pretty much picked up where we'd left off.
Yeah, it was a pretty seamless transition back into the league. I think when you go to Ibrox, you want to keep momentum of some sort, and of course that's going to be extremely hard to keep the winning momentum, but I think what it didn't do was knock the confidence or the belief in the squad and the supporters.
That was the risk that could, you take a thump in there and it derails your league campaign.
And I know that would have been very reflective had Rangers gone out and won 5-0, then budget wise that's justifiable, but I think the players believed that they could take something from Ibrox. I think anyway the manager did, and it looked like the supporters did, especially after that Scott Taggart goal. There was so many elements of that game to hang on and confidence and build on. Even though it was a defeat, he came into the Hamilton game still all the good energy, all the good positivity in going into that game. And I think just that week in general, seeing the images of the pitch getting finished, the video of Andy at training on the Thursday night, the players coming back into familiar territory, because that's been something that I had a conversation with Andy about it the other week that has gone unnoticed, just that change of structure and that change of dynamic being at Airdrie. So swapping that back and being home at the Rex, it must have given the players a little bit of a buzz. We've been away for so long, but look, we've come back with all these positive results. Now we get to play on this fantastic surface, and we get to go and take it to a full-time Accies team, and the boys, they lived up to that expectation and they kept the good times rolling with a really confident, decent 1-0 victory.
Yeah, and to be fair, when you look back at last season, one of the big criticisms was our home form. So I think, I kind of said at the start of the season, having that run of games, and it should have been, it should have been 3 league games with the Kelty game being away as well. But to start the campaign, and kind of looked at it and thought it's maybe not the worst thing in the world. And I think, you've had that great start to the in the League Cup groups, and you've had the a couple of narrow victories in the league. You're through in the cup. You've got the day out at Ibrox kind of thing, and it was kind of. I think there was almost a bit of pressure in there. Coming home, the new pitch, first home game in the season, coming off the back of our first defeat of the season, albeit to obviously a Premiership, one of the 2 biggest clubs in the country. But it adds a little bit of pressure onto it. But I thought they handled it really, really well. I thought it was a really, really good performance on Saturday. Kind of looking at the lineup, Andy forced into one change. Other than goals, it was unchanged from Ibrox, but Filagaya came in, and that was probably the big news of the week leading into the game. Couple of days leading into the game was Liam McFarlane getting recalled to Hearts. I'll be honest, I was very, very nervous about Saturday because of McFarlane being recalled.
Yeah, I was really surprised at the news. Obviously not surprised in the fact that he's started so well and he's caught so many plaudits. I'm pretty sure he got into the team of the week for his performance at Ibrox as well, which would have been his second one. Plenty of clean sheets, highlight reels, aplenty so far. But it just felt to me like just totally caught out the blue, because he'd signed his new contract. He'd spoken in the interview about how he's enjoying his time at Alloa, and then just the nature of the beast, that's the risk that you take with a loan signing like that. And with Hearts picking up those 2 injuries, he's been accelerated. And you know what? We probably won't see him in Alloa colours again. Wish him all the best, Dale. It's a shame we didn't get to see more of him, because I think he's a really special goalkeeper, and I would be I won't be surprised if he goes on and kicks on. And you look at, I know this sounds daft and this sounds wild, but you look at the Scotland squad that was announced today, that is an area that's crying out for quality and someone coming up through the ranks, and hopefully, not saying he will be, but hopefully Liam is going to be in that conversation, because he's an outstanding goalkeeper with all the attributes, I think, to really kick on. I think you're only natural in being slightly apprehensive going into it. He's been at the heart of so many solid defensive performances, but fair play to Phil, a guy who comes in, and although he's not pulling off world-class save after world-class save, he did his job well. He was calm, he was assured, composed, dealt with what came towards him, and I think that just speaks, testament of him as a guy as well. And the manager spoke about that in the press conference, in the interview, about how positive he is around the training ground, how he celebrates Liam's saves or whoever it may be as much as he celebrates his own. And I think him having that attitude, even when he's the number 2, means that whenever he's called upon, he's in a good frame of mind to go on and take it. And we all love him as a guy. We all think he's fantastic. So good on him for coming in. And I think Andy's right. And just steady the ship, take stock, and let's make sure that we get this decision of who to bring in as a goalkeeper right, as opposed to the 1,000,001 options he seemed to be offered on the Friday.
Yeah, I thought Phil did well. I mean, my comments afterwards basically could have had his pipe and slippers out with him for how much he was kind of worked, but certainly at the last kind of couple of minutes of injury time, he came for a couple of crosses that just completely took any pressure off us whatsoever. At that moment you needed someone to be big, commanding, and really composed, and that's exactly what Phil was. But I thought even in the little bits in the first half, the couple of efforts that did come at him, he was very tidy. We see a lot, shots will come at Phil and he'll drop he'll save them but drop a lot but there was none of that. Everything was sharp, was tidy, was under control. And I thought that, it's just tiny little things, but I actually think that made a bit of difference. Probably the defence as well, they probably seen right away, Phil's came in tidy, here we go, we're going to be fine, sort of thing. But yeah, I was certainly concerned about it. I think the concern for me really was when you looked at those first 2 league games, the first 25 minutes against Steny, we could have been 3 or 4 down if not for Liam McFarlane, and then the saves in the East Fife game as well. You look at those games, and without McFarlane we could have been in a lot of trouble realistically. That was my concern. Could Phil deal with that coming into Saturday? But the truth of the matter was that this game was completely different. It wasn't that kind of game. I thought Hamilton had the best chance of the first half when it kind of came back in from a corner, I think it was, and fell to Scott Robinson, and he absolutely blazes it over from probably 10, 11 yards out. Other than that, I didn't think Hamilton looked. I was shocked at how toothless they looked, and I would probably compare it to maybe how we looked to kind of start, sort of parts of last season where there was some decent build up and they were kind of in control of the game and were fine defensively, but then just never really looked like threatening at all in attack. And with Phil coming in, it's probably been the ideal game, but it's certainly not what I expected from Hamilton.
Yeah, it's not surprising. I think that would be too far of a stretch with everything that's going on, that general malaise at Hamilton. But you look at that front 3 in particular, McKinstry, Ollie Shaw, Kevin O'Hara, drop it back, you've got Robinson, Smith in the midfield. That's a team that should be able to compete despite what's going 100%. On behind the scenes. And I think Hamilton fans will know better than us, but it was something that was mentioned before the game by an Accies fan, that Andy Graham is much more tactically astute than John Rankin, and if it comes down to tactics and it comes down to motivating a team to play, then his money was on Andy Graham, and that's coming from an Accies fan. So I wonder if that is just that general sort of feeling around the club, because on paper, despite what's happening, that's a strong starting 11, arguably on paper one of the strongest 11s in the division.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, as you say, particularly from midfield forward, and it'd be fair, guys like Luke Alday, like good defence. McDonald at the back as well. Although I will say, McDonald looks like to me looks like he was putting a lot of weight. Yeah, I thought he looked absolutely massive at the back on Saturday. But throughout the team, it's a very strong team. We'll get a look at Inverness this week as well, and I think you're probably looking between them as the best 2, on paper, sides in the division. But there's certainly plenty of quality in the Accies team. We know because of what's happening off the park, they are going to be limited. And you've seen that with their bench; they were quite limited, despite the fact that they've brought in someone on loan. And their transfer embargo have signed someone on loan from Villa just during the week as well. But you can see they don't have. John Rankin doesn't have the options on the bench really to change things up much, I don't think. And as the season goes on, a couple of suspensions, maybe a couple of long-term injuries kick in, it could be a difficult season for Accies. I'm still not going to be surprised if they don't finish the season. I think there's just so much going on off the part there, and I don't know if you've had a look in their like the Pine Bovril thread, but that is complete and utter bin fire type stuff.
I don't know if I've got enough hours in the day to wade through
it's
that.
Horrendous. It's there's kind of like three factions, I think, amongst their support now of, people blaming the board, people blaming McGowan, people blaming the board and McGowan. It's just an absolute mess. But enough about them. Onto ourselves, and talked about Phil there. I think probably part of what made the afternoon so comfortable for Phil, I thought the back four were outstanding on Saturday. I thought all four. I think Cal Waters, for me, he's looking better and better. I don't know if it's the fitness compared to last season, or having a good pre-season or whatever, but Cal Waters looks a step up from where he was last year, because I was one of the people who said I had a question about re-signing Cal Waters after last season. I think he's at another level already this season ahead of where he was last year. He was tested quite a lot aerially, particularly kind of cross diagonal balls towards him, and he dealt with everything all day on Saturday. But the entire back four, I thought, were so good on Saturday.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. That's been the basis and the foundation of Alloa's success so far this season. Obviously, Liam McFarlane's played a big part in that as well, but defensively we've been very good. You spoke about Owen Foster, you've just mentioned Callum Waters there. The two centre halves, which have mostly been Devine, Taggart, Mackay's come in there as well, but whoever has been deployed has been solid and been good. And we spoke about that high retention rate over the summer. Was that the right thing? Was that not the right thing? But you're seeing that consistency of players that have played a lot together, that now understand each other's games, and of course with Church and Devine in particular, getting games with their injuries and with their fitness, which is fantastic. And full credit to that man again, David Devine. He seems to be the man of the moment. Got the winner at Bayview, very, very close to scoring at Ibrox as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously gets the winner on Saturday, which is fantastic, and it's a nice smart header from Devine as well.
Yeah, he's having a cracking season so far. One of McFarlane was the kind of story of the season so far for us, but Devine is certainly up there as well. As you say, the goals as well, like Bussey's coming along now, gets his first professional goal. As you say, nearly gets one at Ibrox the following week, and then does get another winner. I tell you, classy finish on this as well, by the way. I think it was Orsay done really well winning the corner in the first place. Then Taggart, I have to say, didn't like the fact that Taggart was taking the set pieces, probably because of what he'd done at a set piece the week before, but I appreciate with Cammy not starting, it's kind of, you're looking around and I don't know who else would have done it, but good, really good dangerous ball in from Taggart. And it sounded at the time like I think Foster got a slight glance onto the little header on, and I thought at the time, I thought Devine's done really well kind of steering that home, and then when you look at the replays of it, on the volley, it's such a classy finish. Keeper's left stand, they got absolutely no chance of getting anywhere near that, and a really good goal. And to be fair, it looked like he enjoyed it as well, getting to celebrate. I think he's getting into the hang of the celebrations as well now, which is good to see. But long may it continue for him, because we've talked before about the injuries that he's had over his career, not just with us but prior to us as well, when he was still at Motherwell. And it's really nice to see him this regular run of games, now becoming a threat at set pieces as well from an attacking point of view, and obviously enjoying his football just now. Did see that he went off kind of about 5-10 minutes to go, hopefully just a kind of precaution. I seen someone had commented that they'd seen he was kind of stretching off beforehand, so hopefully nothing more than that, just a precaution, and got Dave Mackay on. Nearly backfired for us when Tags went off about 2 minutes later, but yeah, hopefully he's good to go on Saturday.
Yeah, and I really like the stat from Alloa Stats that it's a very niche, totally pointless, but stat that I like, that David Devine joins a trio of historic Wasps to score the first goal on a new artificial surface.
Of course.
So David Devine, of course, on Saturday. Greg Spence back in 2016, and Brown Ferguson back in 2007. So a niche, good stat. I like it.
I'm sure he'll be absolutely delighted. He's wrote his name into Alloa folklore with that
Although
one.
you probably couldn't even have said the previous two anyway, so maybe when we read
The
it
only
again.
one I knew was Spence, and I'll be honest, that's from reading the Buzz from the Rex programme on Saturday at half time. I seen there was a piece in there about the pitch that has just left us, kind of thing. It was actually quite an interesting read, and brought back some good memories on it. But yeah, look, Saturday was really good. I thought first half we were kind of similar to the other games, that we took a little while to get into the game, but as I say, it wasn't like the Steny in these 5 games where we could have found ourselves a couple of goals down. But whatever was said at half time, Skugel for me kind of set the tone in the second half, and as soon as the second half kicked off, you could see that he was looking to push higher, looking to press higher, and just become, kind of almost try and take control of the game again. The midfield, I'm not going to stay on it too long because we've talked about them already, but those 3 are so good together. Stevie, Curtis and Skugel, it's such a nicely balanced midfield, and Saturday, particularly the second half, you've seen so much of that. Skugel being higher up, being able to link up. You've seen him, he was attacking down the left wing at times on Saturday as well. Roberts just been at that ability to carry it, bring it forward, always a threat, taking shots from outside the box as well. We'll say he's got to score his opportunity that he's got at the start of the second half. For me, his first effort that hits the bar I didn't think at the time that it went over. That's the one he should have buried it. He should have absolutely buried the first one. I will say I did think the second looks very, very close to being over. I noticed in the highlights that Stephen Buchanan has positioned himself absolutely perfectly in the way, so you can't really tell. But even live at the time, the second one, it felt like it was over the line. And then the work Stevie Hetherington just mopping up and then being able to spray passes out to the wind. The amount of passes that Devine played quite a few as well, and that's the one bit of his game this season I've criticised him, his distribution. I thought his distribution was a lot better on Saturday. He was pinging balls in behind their right back for Calvin Orsi or for Luke Rankin to chase onto, and Hetherington was the same, playing those balls over the top. I just think that balance of those 3 in the midfield just now is so good.
Yeah, it's really good. I think they all complement each other well. They make each other tick, and they've just got so much energy. Their work rate, I think Curtis Roberts is a prime example of that, because it's so visual, but they all do it in slightly different ways. And I know I keep coming back to the pitch, but for guys like Stefan Skugel, the difference of playing on a surface like he played on Saturday compared to what he's played on in the last couple of seasons at Alloa will make a big difference. I think this is going to be so much more conducive to the way that we want to play football, and I think we are going to see more exciting games at home. We're going to hopefully see the upturn of form at home as well, and the midfield are going to be a massive part of it. We've said so many times, if they're on song, the 3 of them, they're very, very hard to compete against in this league, and even at times at Ibrox as well, you've seen those elements and that quality and that work rate. So it's a midfield that has the ability, and it's just keeping them together, keeping them fit across the season that's going to be such a massive part of our success.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Try to avoid the injuries that we had last season. Yeah. It'd be interesting. I'm thinking about a player the likes of Andy Clark. Sitting there, kind of almost biding his time, waiting for that opportunity, and you kind of wonder: is it going to be? Is it going to have to be an injury that's is going to be what gives him his opportunity to kind of show what he can do? Because right now Andy can't change that midfield at the moment. It'd be crazy to change them. Kind of look at the top of the field. I thought Buchanan did well in the first half on Saturday, but kind of fell out the game a lot in the second. We've seen in the first, kind of similar to the lead up to the first goal at Ibrox, that cutting in and getting in behind the left back. But I thought he kind of fell out the second half quite a bit. Rankin, I've seen quite a few comments about Rankin. I think if you look at the game at Ibrox, Rankin and Orsi, who we'll talk about afterwards, are probably the 2 that probably struggled the most at Ibrox, not through any of the fault of their own. And I think when you look at Rankin, what he's going up against, they're 2 very, very big physical centre halves, and it's kind of the same on Saturday. I thought Rankin ran the channels really well. The amount of times kind of the balls over the top, I thought he had the beating of centre halves every single time. in terms of the pace getting there, but then he was having to hold that ball and kind of wait and hold the ball up for a bit of support coming forward. And I think that's the bit where Rankin just struggles a little bit. We talked the week before last about him when he drops deeper in the centre and links up there, perfect. But when he's isolated further up top, I think that then it's a bit more difficult for him. And I kind of said after the way he was kind of playing on Saturday, I think it would have worked well as a 2. You know, him making those kind of runs into the channels, out wide, that kind of thing. But he needed someone there at that point that he could then move it quickly, and that's where it just didn't kind of work on Saturday. We've seen when Salmon came on, he was able to kind of face up the defenders, but he was able to run the channels as well, but then face up and bring the other, hold it up enough to bring support into play as well. So that it's kind of interesting on Rankin. For me, you still stick with Luke Rankin because I still think he's a goal scorer. I just think we potentially need to utilise him a little bit differently than we did on Saturday. The last man I would talk about, Calvin Orsay, for me, I know he's not played a lot of games, but certainly it's Orsay's best game for Alloa. Devine was given man of the match, I think, on Saturday by the sponsors, but Orsay would have been my shout for it. I thought he was excellent. The amount of men that he beat on Saturday with. I remember I watched at one point in the first half, he's been at the left wing, and it was kind of a little bit like Luke Donnelly in terms of everything was happening around him, and Orsay was basically just walking with the ball at the park, and he was just letting everything else develop. And Alloa players were making runs, and the Hamilton players were going with it. And Orsay just basically would just walk the ball up maybe about 20-30 yards up the pitch. It was a bit like Luke Donnelly-esque, just letting it develop round. But I thought his all round game on Saturday, I thought he did really, really well. And as I say, for me, he would have been man of the match. And I'm glad for him because he obviously came in at Ibrox for Cammy. I felt for Cammy. He'd had a really good start to the season, and that was the kind of, when you looked at the lineup for the cup game, that was the kind of glaring omission was Cammy dropping out and Orsay coming in. I'd mentioned it the week before, and I wasn't massively surprised. I understand why that change was made, and the thinking that Orsay and Buchanan would be the out balls and could carry us up the park, but it didn't work with Orsay at Ibrox, and obviously I think he went off at half time if I remember right. So coming into the Hamilton game on Saturday, I actually wondered if we might see Cammy start again. Seeing it was Orsay, I thought he responded very, very well to it. I thought he was excellent on Saturday.
Yeah, he's been a good sign, and I think it's quite a nice dynamic between Orsay and O'Donnell because they are so different. So it gives you completely different options whether you start one or start the other, or whether they want to change it mid-game. I think Calvin Orsay's another one that just has such a good engine on him and such a good drive, and you've seen that the way that he carried the team forward on Saturday, and he's going to be a really good option, and I think that's something that is only going to get better over the next couple of weeks as well, is just that squad depth. And I think the squad is fairly strong. I think there's a couple of positions we're a little bit light on, but we're certainly a lot more blessed than the opposition that we played on Saturday, and I think it's only going to improve, and to have completely different players in those positions as well, and Orsay and O'Donnell are the prime example of that. It's only going to stand us in good stead because it's a long season. We know what's coming round the corner in terms of inevitable knocks and injuries and whatever it may be, setbacks like McFarlane. So it's important that squad is utilised, and I think the way that Andy has utilised the squad so far this season has been really good, and it seems like everyone's getting minutes, getting game time. And I know this game on Tuesday night, which I think we've both probably forgotten about, against St Mirren B, is another opportunity to kind of continue that rotation, keep everybody sharp, and when players are coming in, they are taking their opportunities, they are making an account for themselves, and that just gives the manager really difficult decisions to make.
Yeah, I'll finish up on last Saturday. I'll pose a question to you. Obviously came on LD came on Saturday. We'd seen him down at Stranraer. He played down there as well, and he came on at Ibrox as well, I think, near the end. I'm going to pose a question to you. Where does LD fit into this team?
It is an interesting one. In the way that we set up and started on Saturday, probably as the number 9 as opposed to Luke Rankin, but I'm with you. Luke is the starting striker. I think he does so much work off the ball that goes unnoticed. He does so much work to hold it up, to bring other players into it. But in terms of that shape and formation, I don't think I'm sacrificing a midfielder for him. But we're not going to be able to play that formation in that shape and that style every game of the season. LD's best position is behind the striker. It's playing off someone like Luke Rankin, in my opinion. Whether you're sacrificing a winger for that or whether you're putting someone else in the midfield, you're going to have to change it to some extent, and we might need to do that at points this season. You speak about Andrew Clark coming in. Is that something that at points this season we'll see an extra body thrown into midfield and LD playing off Rankin and your wing backs a little bit higher? It's good options to have, but if you're asking me for a straight kind of swap into that starting 11 on Saturday, I don't think he gets in at the moment, but it's a long season, isn't it? So I think he'll definitely have his chance at some point.
Yeah, I think he'll play. But the reason I'm asking is, I right now I'm the same. I don't see where he fits into it. And I thought that was interesting. So he came on for Skugel with about 5 minutes left, and it would have been just after that we went down to 10. I think coming on for Skugel, that kind of made sense. I thought it was interesting that it was LD that came on and not, say, Reece Mullen.
Yeah.
I think 5 minutes to go. Although I would still say we were in control at that point. And we did see Accies kind of threw everything at us for the last couple of minutes or so. I would kind of expect that, and I wondered, would Reece Mullen, a kind of a more sort of defensive minded midfielder, maybe have been the option? Cammy was already on the park, so could have played that sort of more advanced kind of the Skugel type position if need be. And then I thought it then stood out the fact that we then went down to 10 pretty much immediately and played kind of pretty much 10 minutes with 10 men. LD didn't. He just kind of looked a bit lost in amongst it all, and I know because of they had to change the system right away. We ended up with a back three of two full backs. The wing backs were, I mean, at that point would have been Orsay and Buchanan, I think, were the wing backs, and LD just didn't fit into there. I thought that it was as if there wasn't a position for him. That's why I posed the question. I'll wrap up on last Saturday there. I'll move on to the Sunday though. Was this your first official coaching duties? It was the women's team bounced back with a resounding victory, and supposedly the changes in the dugout have made all the difference, is what we're hearing.
If you look at David Glencross's photos from the game, there's only one photo of me, and it is sticking my hands in one of the players' bag of Jaffa cakes and eating that. So I will take absolutely zero influence on Saturday. All I did clearly was sit and eat my biscuits, or cakes. Open another can of worms there. Full credit to the girls on Sunday. It was one of those games. They won 10-0 against Carron Huskies in the Regional Cup away at Glen Village. We turn up to the ground. It's not quite the surface that we're used to. It's not quite the facilities that we're used to. We're down to the bare bones. We've had a couple of absentees, injuries. The young goalkeeper that we had is signed for Partick Thistle, so players are moving on already. So we're quickly chopping and changing the team on light bodies, and outfielder jumps in goals, and we're swapping players in. And full credit to the team with so much adversity going on, and off the back of what was a disappointing defeat in the opening day of the Cup, they came out and they were pretty comfortable and controlled and dominated the game. And it could have been, probably the only complaint was it could have been a lot more. There was a lot of chances to make it more, but you score 10, you don't have any reply. It's plenty of positives. So it was a trialist that got 4 goals. Shannon Mulligan got a hat-trick, and then Amy Cully, Lorna Abbots and Chloe McNaught all got on the score sheet as well. So goals spread around the team, and I think from our perspective, a trialist to come in and hopefully get that one over the line, for her to score 4 goals is really positive, and that's one that, should she get that one sorted and over the line, will be a really big player across the season. But it was all good, and 3 points on the board before we return home to the Rex, which is fantastic. I think especially off the back of Sunday and at Glen Village playing on that park, to have the night and day difference of going and playing on a surface like the Rex on Sunday, 2 o'clock kick-off against Linlithgow Rose. It's going to be a cracker, because they're a good team. It's going to be a really competitive game, and Sunday football at the Rex, definitely get along and support the girls, because we'd really appreciate it, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. So we're excited. I'm excited to get back to the Rex and see it for myself as well.
Yeah, it should be a good game. I'm pretty certain I was at the game against them last season, and I remember Linlithgow support brought quite a lot through as well. You know, they kind of packed out the stand. And if I remember, I've got a feeling Linlithgow won it. I want to say they might have been 4-3 or 3-2, something like that. But it was a decent game of football. But full credit to the girls for bouncing back. It was a really poor result the weekend before, but to bounce back in that way. And you know, you're looking at that fixture list. Obviously, Carron Huskies last year, I remember the home game there, they put about 14 or 15 past them. So it's probably a good fixture for the women to have, coming with you know, trying not to disrespect Carron Huskies here, coming off the back of that defeat. But they still have to go out there and do that. And yeah, nice to see the goals kind of sharing around, a few different names getting mentioned in there as well.
Yeah, and it's all about building momentum as we gear up towards that league campaign starting. And there is so many new players within that group that don't know each other, and I think you maybe seen an element of that the previous cup game against Cumbernauld, but you're starting to see, you know, players growing in the squad and getting to know each other. And I was particularly impressed, although it's 10-0 and you look towards the goal scorers and you look towards the goals and the moments, but you know, as a backline defensively, and like the confidence and the composure to step out of defence, to take a player on, to pick that pass, it was, you know, an all-round performance. And I think the girls will grow in that, and it's important that we don't get too overconfident, but we just slowly just build on it and use that and continue that into next Sunday, which will be a big game. I think, like I say, returning to the Rex is hopefully going to be a decent crowd, a competitive game. And yeah, I think after a bit of a hiatus away from the Rex, just as the men's team we're excited to get back as well. So no, looking forward to it. Sunday, Linlithgow Rose, 2 o'clock kick-off, if you can manage along.
Yeah, I'll hopefully be that. I'm Inverness for the weekend. Going up, I think we're going up on the Friday, so I don't know when we're coming back. Well, I'll be back at some point on the Sunday, but I don't know if it's going to be first thing or if it's going to be late on. So yeah, it's going to depend on that. But hopefully be back in time to get up there for it. Kind of leads us on quite nice, beautiful segue there. You like that nice transition into this Saturday's game. It is Alloa going up to Inverness. Inverness, I seen a comment about, you know, obviously the start they've had. Both teams technically are 9 points, but yeah, just to wind it into them, we'll call them mid-table Inverness for this fixture.
Well,
but
they did get beat.
They've obviously, what's that?
They did get beat, no?
Yeah, Stenhousemuir beat them, but they came back with beating Montrose on Saturday. So they're without the deduction, they would be on 9. They would be. Technically, they'd be sitting top on goal difference just now. So it is a top of the table clash, despite them sitting a little bit lower. But yeah, said there about Hamilton, one of probably the best two sides in the division. As I said, this for me is what will go up against them in terms of being the best side. Going to be a tricky day up in the Highlands on Saturday.
Yeah, I think on paper this is the hardest game of the calendar, shall we say. It was somewhere that, you know, I don't think we took a result last season. I think we drew the second.
What I say, we drew the second game up there when
you're right. We did.
Taggart scored a header and PJ saved the penalty in the follow up from Mackay.
Yeah, you're right. So it is a tough place to go, because you've got to factor that travel. You know, remember what happened to David Devine on the bus last year. But it's a long way to go, and you look at that squad similar to. When you break down the Accies squad, there's a lot of quality in there. None more so than, you know, Alfie Bavidge, who I think is one of the best players in the league. He's a really good player, and they've got a decent manager at the helm as well. He's clearly galvanised them off the back of everything that's been going on the last year or so. So they're a really decent team, but I think as much as we get to this part of the podcast, we do look at the other team. I think it's important to, reflect on ourselves. It's only the seventh time in the club's history that we've started with 3 consecutive league victories, and that doesn't even account for the 4 previously in the cup as well. So this is an Alloa team that's coming with all the momentum, with all the confidence, and they should go up there and believe and back themselves as a title and a promotion challenger, and I firmly believe that they will do that, and it's going to be an absolute cracker of a game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at the Inverness squad, it's not massively dissimilar to last year. Obviously, Divagging goals is a big loss for them. For me, was I think he got team of the year in the end, but certainly for me was the best keeper in the division last year. And I think that partnership, Divine Savage, the big sort of physical centre halves, I think that's probably the area last year, thinking back to the games up at Inverness, we gave their centre half so much space. Basically allowed Divine and Savage to carry it into the Alloa half every time they had the ball, and that I'd hopefully maybe see a bit of a change there. I noticed as well that they brought in Oscar McIntyre, the left back. Obviously seen him in the division a fair bit when he was on loan at Queen of the South, and did he end up signing potentially for Queen of the South as well? It's a bit of a funny one. I didn't rate him that highly the first kind of couple of seasons that I'd seen him, but do remember the pace he's got, and I remember Buchanan going up against him last year, and he was certainly, in terms of the pace, he's a match for Buchanan pace wise. But for me, it's the mid. I mean, a bit like Hamilton, it's the midfield forward that I look at that team and think that's where there's a hell of a lot of quality. Talked about some of the players that they've brought in. They essentially lost, the kind of midfield from last year, like Gilmore transferring away, but bringing in Joe Chalmers, Witherspoon, needs no introduction, and the fact that they've got like Alfie Stewart back on loan, again from obviously on loan last year from Aberdeen. I think that's a really good. We've talked about our midfield and saying it's probably potentially up there with the best in the division. I look at this midfield and that's a hell of a matchup for Saturday.
Yeah, in different ways, isn't it? Although Stewart's kind of the exception to the rule. Both Chalmers and Witherspoon are towards the end of their career. I think Witherspoon's 35 and a fantastic career that he's had. He's represented his country at the highest level, so not taking anything away from him. But what we said about that Alloa midfield is the energy that they've got, that relentlessness, that press, that drive, and that's something that if they can take that to these guys. I've not seen them play too much or too close over recent times, but probably want to slow it down a little bit more and take the kind of sting out of the game and control the midfield. If we can bring the energy that we know that we've got, is that something that a 35-year-old David Witherspoon can deal with? We'll find out. He's a quality footballer, so potentially, but our midfield qualities are different to their midfield qualities, and I think that's what does make it a really interesting battle.
Yeah, I feel for Saturday, Curtis Roberts is the kind of key for us in that midfield, and as you're kind of saying there, can we get them turned? Can Roberts carry the ball forward and kind of put that pressure on that Inverness midfield that they're having to track back? Witherspoon's such a quality player. I want to see him. I want to see him being forced to get tracked back. He's less dangerous if we're drawing him back into his own half on Saturday. And I think Curtis Roberts really is. He's the guy of the 3 in our midfield that will carry the ball forward like that. But yeah, I think the midfield battle on Saturday, I think that's a really interesting matchup. And then when you look at the front line for Inverness as well, you said it, Babbage is the one that kind of stands out. I will say, obviously Mackay and Babbage have both been playing. From what I understand, Babbage has been playing out wide. I would be delighted if that's the case on Saturday. I'd rather have him been playing it wide. Still very good. He played it there a fair bit for when he was on loan at Kelty, playing it mainly up the left if I remember right with them, but he just didn't look the same threat being out wide compared to through the centre. He obviously can do damage as well. He's a really good player. Mike, I'm not going to linger on it, but why is he in League One? I don't get it. Like, from an Inverness point of view, if I'm an Inverness fan, absolutely delighted that you've got him on loan again this season. potentially one of the best players in the division. I think it's a great signing for Inverness. But I kind of look at him and think he's done League One, like from his own kind of personal development sort of thing. I think it feels like a waste of talent. When he was at Kelty, before he was even at Inverness last season, when he was at Kelty, he looked good enough that kind of League One was sort of completed by that point. And I know he then went on loan. Was it Ayr that he went to? Whether it wasn't the run of games, whether it was I don't know, but I kind of get then he came back to Aberdeen and then came to Aberdeen. You think that's fair enough? That's the natural step after the Kelty loan. I expected him to go to the Championship, which he did, and okay, it's not worked out. But then he's came back last season with Inverness. I thought he was exceptional when he came back to Inverness last season. So I'm really looking at him thinking this has to be a Championship loan from this season, and really it needs to work. And like I say, from an Inverness point of view, absolutely brilliant signing, and I'm a Cali fan. I'm absolutely delighted to see him back. But I just think it just seems a bit of a strange move for his development. But I'd certainly rather see him out wide with Mackay through the centre. We know the history Mackay has, particularly with Inverness. A proven goal scorer. I certainly would rather see Mackay in the middle and Babbage out wide come sort of 2:00 on Saturday when the teams come out.
Yeah, I think wherever they play, they're going to offer different sorts of threat. I think Alfie Babbage is the main one for me. I would go as far to say, in terms of any other players in any other division, he's any other team in the division, he is for me the standout. He's fantastic, and I'm with you. It's quite the coup that he's in this league from Inverness, but I think
100%.
Probably just speaks of a marriage that just works.
You've got the family tie. I get the family tie there with his dad, Martin Babbage, but I get that. It just from the player's development point of view, it just seems it seems like a waste. A waste of a season. But like I say, if I'm a Cali fan, I'm delighted.
Yeah, I know. I think if you look at our team and the way that we'll set up and the way that we'll approach the game, I can't see there being too many changes. The only ones that I can see are the ones that are potentially forced. Obviously, there's a couple of knocks and niggles, but I think should they both be fit, I'm thinking of the defensive ones. To me, it's the same. It's the same starting 11 that go on and start this game. It's that momentum, it's that kind of confidence that we're building. We can talk about the couple of players that we're linked with transfer wise. I think if they were to come in before the game, it would probably be a position on the bench, but for me there's no reason to really change a winning formula so far.
I don't think he would either. I think he would keep it the same, and I think the idea of how they'll look to play will be the same as kind of the Rangers game and Hamilton as well, in terms of looking at Buchanan and Orsay as the players who can carry the ball up the park, and at the same time, if you're going to go longer and go more direct more quickly, you're looking at Rankin running the channels into the kind of between the sort of full-backs and the centre half into that sort of space. I think they'll play I think Andy will look for Allo to play in a similar way as they did to Saturday. The midfield, we know what they're about, kind of talked about that and how we want them to kind of imprint themselves on the game. My hope would be that they get into the game probably a bit earlier. That's maybe my only criticism I've had of them so far this season, is it's taken them a little bit of time to get into some of these games, and we've certainly, as we've historically been for about the last 10 years or whatever, we have been a second half team, I would say. I'd like to see us try and get into games a bit more, but I think Andy will look for us to play similar to how we played against Airdrie in the League Cup. I think we will probably give up a fair bit of possession to Inverness. I don't think we'll sit. I'd seen I think they commented on the match when talked about that, basically two banks of 4 or 2 banks of 5 is what they've seen teams doing. I don't expect that, but I do expect us to be comfortable giving up possession and then look for those threats on the counter from there. But yeah, unless anything's forced, I can't see Andy changing the team. My concern is that he may be forced to, with obviously seeing Devine going off, which we think is precautionary. Taggart though is the one. The fact that he's just came back from missing a couple of games to then go off at the end, particularly when we knew obviously we had another sub available, but didn't have break to make that sub, so we couldn't get anyone on, knowing that we were about to go down to 10, and the fact that he still had to come off, because to my mind, if Tags had any chance to play on, he would have, to stop us going down to 10, sort of 5-10 minutes to go, defending a 1-0 lead. So it's obviously a concern if he's had to go off, and we've had to drop like that. So for me, if either of them are unavailable, it would feel like it's Dave Mackay that's going to come in. My big concern is if both happen to be unavailable, then the gaffer could be lacing up the boots.
Yeah, I think I would be surprised if it was both. I think with David Devine, it probably is a bit of precaution, and had Taggart gone down a couple of minutes before he did, then you probably wouldn't have seen him come off. He would have finished the game. But I think that is the big one, and fingers crossed for Scott Taggart, because he was excellent at Ibrox, and he had such a calmness and composure to the back line. There has been one defensive name linked on the Pie and Bovril thread that has been thrown out, and it's going to be a short conversation as to whether we would be happy or not. But Charlie Dure's name has been thrown on Pie and Bovril. I think it's kind of always been swimming around the background of supporters' minds since he left, because obviously he's not going to play for Dundee United. I wonder if it's one that potentially might be accelerated should we have any injuries, but obviously, we don't know anything. We've just read it on Pie and Bovril like everyone else. Would be an outstanding signing should he come in.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to see him back. I think it probably makes sense as well, the fact that we only had him for that sort of second. We got him late on last season. It's not like we had him for the whole season on loan. It was only the second part, and that was his first kind of loan move out into League One. So to me, it kind of makes sense. Could you have went to potentially go to a lower end Championship team? Yeah, like say a Queen's Park sort of size of Championship. Potentially, I think there is. He's probably in that bracket of upper League One to lower Championship level. So to my mind, I suppose a bit like Babbage at Inverness, if it happens to be us that gets him, and all benefit to us. Yeah, I'd be delighted to see him back. I thought he did really well when he came in literally from the word goal last season. He looked good. A couple of first mistake, he lost his man in the first game for a goal, and it seemed to be after that he was pretty flawless from there on. So yeah, I'd be delighted to see him back. I did notice the same post, Callum Gallagher was another name that was mentioned with us being linked to as well. I would take him. I would certainly take. I think that would be a really nice piece to put into that front line, or to have as an option for that front line.
Yeah, I think he's plenty of experience. He's got out this league multiple times. He's obviously been at the club before, very, very briefly, but I think just adding that experience into that front line is going to benefit guys like Luke Rankin. It's going to benefit, Buchanan on the wing, or O'Donnell, Orsi, whoever it may be. He's a clever, different striker. We speak again about getting options that aren't this carbon copies of each other, and I think Gal is one of those, and he's been a thorn in our side many times over the past. He's maybe not quite the same player as what he was at Airdrie, for example, but he's still got so much quality to offer. So I think it's really hard at this point of a window especially to bring in experience, and to bring in experience that can still contribute so well. So I think if Callum Gallagher was offered to you, or was in the building for discussions, I think you'd be silly to turn your nose up at it. He could add so much to the dressing room and the pool of players as well. So that would be another shrewd piece of signing. And then of course you've got a couple imminent, from what it seems, from Rangers. Obviously we've got that partnership lined up, and we've played them the other week as well, so we've been in the building, we've no doubt had conversations, but it does seem like there will be something in terms of movement in there as well. Who it is, unsure, but I've seen on the advertiser before jumping on this podcast that does look like there's going to be a little bit of movement there, and that will be good as well. I think it's always a gamble with the lone players, but they come in, they're fearless, it's a roll of the dice, and when you land that little gem, that's the difference between having a alright season to, this is a proper serious team. It's that wild card that you just don't know about, and hopefully we can pull that through a Rangers partnership, and it allows the whole thing to filter down quite nicely. What the manager said, it allows the younger guys on the bench that we've seen at Stranraer go out and get more game time, because we need them to sit on the bench, whereas let's bring in Rangers youth and introduce them into the squad. Then we can put our own youth out to get game time. So it would be signings that I think would just benefit everybody in a whole.
It's sort of it's rumours that we've seen it, and it's a lot of this is based on the post we've seen on the match thread that someone had heard on Saturday. But these rumours make sense.
Yeah.
To me, I'm looking at that squad, and Dewar, a guy that we had the second half of last season, did well. Does that make sense for him coming back in? Yeah, it does. We're a centre half down from where we were last season. We have got a couple of injury concerns at the back, so that is a signing that makes sense. So if that happens, that's a totally logical sign, and I think most people would agree another option up top is definitely an area we're short on. Looks done well. Samuel, I've said before, I'm loving the role that Samuel's playing, that coming off the bench and just causing chaos. Absolutely love it. But we're looking there at you need a third option. Is that LD? For me, I'm still on the fence on that one. So I think someone like a Callum Gall, if that was to happen, I think that's quite a logical move. In the same way that we're saying, if we happen to be able to get someone like Josh Gentles back, well, that would have been a logical move as well. And then you look then, well, if we're going to maybe get one or two in from Rangers, let's say, I'm kind of looking at wing as the obvious, especially right wing. You've got Orsay and I prefer Cammy more central. I've said before, I prefer him behind a striker. For me, it's more central, but he can play out in that wing. So if you've got Orsay and Cammy covering that left wing, you look onto the right wing, and it's really Buchanan is pretty much our only option there. So logic to me suggests a loanee from Rangers that is a winger, either left or right side. I think that would be a sort of transfer that would make sense. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if Andy goes into the market in that area. And it probably leaves you the goalkeeper is obviously an area now with McFarlane. But I seen on the same post that had mentioned about another Hearts keeper, not McFarlane. Kind of looking there, Harry Stone seems to be the obvious kind of candidate if that's the case, unless it was a much younger keeper. One more potentially from Rangers, but I'm then trying to think where would that fit in? Right back potentially. I'm not sure.
I completely forgot about the goalkeeper. That's it. My night has been ruined once again by remembering that Liam McFarlane is no longer an Alloa. But if it is Harry Stone, I think that's at this stage of a window to bring in a keeper of that experience. I think that would be a pretty astute piece of business. But I would be surprised if there's not at least one, maybe two, by the game of Inverness. I don't know anything, but I'd imagine that the ball will get rolling pretty well now that the Premiership teams are they know their season Europe wise, all that sort of stuff. And I think the goalkeeper one is pretty, it's pressing. It's good that we're not rushing it, but I don't think this can linger on another couple of games. I think
I posed you a question at the end of the Hamilton roundup, so I'll pose one to you now. Let's say Harry Stone comes in before Saturday. Who do you start in goals?
Probably Harry Stone. That pains me a little bit inside to say that, but I think that's why I ask, because I think it's a difficult decision to make. It is a difficult one. I think if you are going to bring him in, I think he probably does come straight in and goes into the squad. What I'm probably not more interested, but I will be intrigued, is Neil Parry getting a run out against St Mirren B?
I did wonder that. Again. I hadn't forgotten that we had a game on Tuesday. I'm just completely ignoring the fact that we've got a game on Tuesday. But I think he will. Will play that game. I
can't wait to see that.
Yeah, great to see him back in. Well, I'd say great to see. I ain't going to it, but for any that do go to it, great to see Big Nelly back in Alloa colours. But yeah, I think he'll play on. I think he kind of has to, because right now, as of this moment, if Phil goes down injured, it's Neil Parry that's coming on. So you'd kind of hope get him a game, build up some degree of match sharpness as much as you can in 90 minutes against St Mirren B.
Yeah.
But
You know what?
I think it makes sense to play him.
He'll be loving it as well. He'll be loving it, as will the team as well.
Well, you say that. I caught a little bit at the end of their warm up on Saturday when obviously they have the sub keeper in goals for them shooting, and I don't think he was loving. I do not think Parry was loving that, especially when it was Curtis and Stevie Hetherington.
I think Curtis,
that were shooting into him. He was
Curtis
not enjoying himself.
Enjoys scoring into Neil Parry, so
yeah,
that might be an explanation.
Yeah, you could tell that. You could tell that, and Parry was hating it. Finish up prediction. What you think for Saturday?
I'll go for a draw. I think it's going to be tight.
Same.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 0-0, but I'll give you a goal for your travels, Kev. I'll go 1-1.
Exactly. I hate going the same as you, but yeah, I feel one each in this one as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Bavage that grabs it for Inverness, and let's say a first goal. Has Orsi scored for us yet? I don't think he has he?
No.
Let's say a first goal for Orsi for the Wasps, but I think it'll be quite tight as well. I think the games up there last season. Well, really, I want to say. I mean, the first game at the Rex, Cali were 2 up, I think, and then we brought it back to 2 each in the second half. I think the first game up there, Cali won 1-0, possibly 1 or 2-0, and then I know obviously we drew up there the second game. I want to say Cali won quite comfortably in the second game that was at the Rex. Really should have just looked these scores up, but I feel from memory, I feel like they won relatively comfortably the second time they came to the Rex. So, to be fair, they were pretty close games. I think Cali were the better team throughout the matchups last year, but the result, in terms of results, they were obviously quite close. So expect probably similar. If either team is to win it, I'd be surprised if it's by more than a goal, put it that way.
Yeah, I feel like the only Inverness game that lives in my memory is the Scott Banks and Lee Connolly show. So some of that on Saturday would be absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, totally agree.